Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, those are yours. Oh, it's packed. The Turkish full as well. What's that? The Turkish.
Yeah, I think it's much better this way. Yeah,
People sitting in the hall.
sitting in the halls. Yeah, I saw that.
That was just for like.
I told my wife, I said, if I didn't have to daven, I'd probably go to Ashkelon.
They
Yeah,
finished in 3.5 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
They finished at 10:30. Yeah.
Yom Kippur.
That's not Yom Kippur.
you know something? We're used to a certain type of Yom
We're
Kippur.
used to 6 hours, sitting in Shoals for.
Whole day. There's no 6 hours. The whole day.
Yeah, in yeshiva, we sat the whole day.
Yeah.
I was saying,
How many years ago was that?
I never went to yeshiva.
Yeah.
I was saying, Mark, for people who have young kids, the husband will.
Well, that's what happened. I know a lot of people go there and the wives then come to their kids, right?
And they go home.
I know, like Glenn has his program, a lot of people there too in his program.
Yeah, it was very nice. I was kibitzing with him. I said, the Bayit has all different kinds of services. We even have a service without a mechitza. So he
I
laughed.
was gonna be. Wait to the protest.
So he said, oh, when did you come in? I said, well, I looked through the window on the door when you guys were doing Unasana Tokef. And then I'm looking, I said, is this Holy Blossom?
He's already
Yeah, it's crowd, both Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah, really nice. Yeah, I spoke to the crowd at Rosh Hashanah. Okay. All right. So let's do our shaila for today. She'ela misha mochar okana b'sha'a shahaya shikor. If a person sells or buys while he's intoxicated, ha'im ha'mechira v'ha'kinyan shelo chalim, do we say that the kinyan is a valid kinyan? O shekeven she'eno miyushav b'daito, ein ha'mecher v'lo ha'kinyan chalim. Or do we say that if you were not of sound mind, the transaction can be canceled because it never took place? I'm sure there must be laws in the books.
Yeah, you have to have capacity. So if you're impaired by drugs or alcohol or mental infirmity or something, you can't assent to what you're doing. Mental infirmity. Mental infirmity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your language skills are growing.
Me, you get a better. No, that's like their legal categories.
Sure, absolutely.
So how does that apply to?
So halachically, tshuva hashikor mekacho mekach umemkar umemkar umatnasov kayamim. So normally we say that even though you're shikar, your sale is a valid sale and your purchase is a valid purchase, and any kind of gift that you make is binding. Aval im higia l'shichus shalot, unless you reach what's halachically called the shichus of Lot, which how drunk was Lot? He was drunk. He was drunk enough to consort with his daughters and not know what he's doing. Okay, if you reach to that level, where you're performing an act and have no idea what you're doing, so then ein ma'asav klum. Then it's not valid. V'hareu kamo shoita o kekatan pachos mi ben sheish. And in that case, you'd be like a mentally infirm person, okay? Or like a minor who's less than 6 years old, that their actions are not legally binding. Now, what that means is that the court the Beis Din would have to make a determination. How wasted were you? Yeah.
One taking a breathalyzer without it.
Welcome to our new game show. How wasted are you? Okay. Okay.
I'm sure they wouldn't apply the test that we're applying about load measurement. Like, when you have 2 or 3 drinks and you're not you're still clear. Your head is totally clear.
You are clear, however, some of your judgment is impaired, meaning that, there are people who would say, like, okay, so I had a few drinks and then this beautiful woman comes over to me and starts, trying to convince me to give her a gift. And then I say afterwards, well, I didn't really mean it. It was the moment, it was the this, the that. Halacha would not look kindly upon that kind of argument. Did you know what you were doing? I guess that's the basis question. Were you aware that you were giving this woman a gift? And you say, yeah, I knew, but but it was the moment. It was, she seduced me, whatever. That's not a valid argument as long as you knew what you were doing.
Like you could be impaired and blow into the breathalyzer point away and reach that, but still enter into a valid binding contract. Right? Some people,
Right.
It's cognitive versus like, you're driving, I wouldn't say like. that's
So
one thing.
driving
Let's say
is
you get
because of
smooth,
reflexes.
right.
Yeah.
You're,
but you could still know what you're doing with the woman or with the contract or whatever. You just haven't reached that level yet, right?
Well, Simchat Torah.
not that I know so much about these things.
Simchas Torah.
Rather the auction.
You heard.
I heard.
Oh, that's a good example. So Doug says, what about Simchas Torah in the auctions? If you ply people a little bit, you'll get bigger donations.
And can they retract from that?
Moish, have you used that?
No, have you used the excuse?
As he says, unabashedly.
But it's
I
enough.
owe some serious money.
Yeah, it's enough.
Were you bringing out what the
And
person,
So
I mean-
the state jokes to me, I got $5,400, probably doesn't remember me, and he committed to it.
And has anyone ever tried to get
Never.
out of their pledge?
Never, not with me. Sending Guido.
I mean, you can argue that's what their soul really wanted to do. The whole thing about giving a get and stuff like that.
No, but it definitely helps.
Yeah,
It definitely helps.
but I mean, I don't think anybody's as drunk as walk on that stage. Wow. Maybe close.
Okay, let's go on. Hatam shekatan hayodea b'tiv mekach umemkar, mekcho mekach umemkar umemkar. So this is a related issue. If a minor is aware of what he's doing, there are times when, even though he's not yet bar mitzvah, but his action is legally binding. So the shaila is like this: Katan shadain lo higia legil 13 v'yom echad. He hasn't yet reached bar mitzvah. Shemidin Torah ein mekcho mekach umemkar umemkar. That technically, we could argue that he's not of age to be fully cognizant, and therefore his sale and purchases are not valid. Mahatam shetiknu chazal demigil sheishanim ad sheyagdil im yodea b'tiv masu matan mekcho mekach umemkar umemkar. But nonetheless, our sages stepped in and they said that even though by Torah law, until you're 13, your transactions are not valid. But if you're over the age of 6, Chazal said, if you know what you're doing, so then they are valid. Why did they make that rule? And of course, you could clearly hear in your mind that, oh, well, that doesn't sound right. I mean, a 7-year-old child could easily get exploited by someone who is a slick talker. Okay, so the answer is Hatam shehutzruchu chazal l'takanazu sheyihiya migil sheishanim ad sheyagdol mekcho mekach umemkar memkar. Why did they add this new law that the transaction can sometimes be valid? Kevin shepe'amim hakatan ein mi sheyafarnesenu v'chayiv sheyilo makor leparnasaso v'yitztarich lasok b'mischar kolshehu kedei lefarneses atzmo. He says, because unfortunately, there have been periods in Jewish history where Jewish children were orphans and they had to go out and earn a living, had to work for themselves. Think like Charles Dickens. Yeah, but that's not as bad as it used to be in Poland and in Russia when a kid was an orphan because the Cossacks came. And now he's got to figure out how he's going to support himself and his little sister. Okay. And so the imlo yihi tokef b'mesha misasek b'masu matan af adam lo yirtza lihisasek ima lo limkar lo v'lo liknos mimenu. And if we don't give him the sort of the what's the word, the rights of an adult as far as commerce, no one's going to want to do business with him. No one's going to want to hire him. No one's going to want to be able to sell or buy from him, because if they know that he could always cancel the transaction because he's a minor, no one's going to want to deal with him. They'll say, "Get away, kid! Don't bother me." Ve'alkein tiknu chazal shia nosei v'nosein b'metaltalin b'maisa kinyan shel mashicha v'shiu masav kayom mishum kedei chayav. And therefore, Chazal stepped in. It's a tragic halacha, a tragic takana that Chazal had to make to be able to help orphan children who needed to make their own parnasa. So they therefore endowed a minor above the age of 6 with the rights of being able to make a kinyan, and that all of his commercial trade would be legal. V'takana zu shayechet gam ken b'ketana mibas sheish ad shetagdil v'tagil legil 12 sham v'yamech, and it applies equally to male and female children. So that's the reason historically.
Talking about.
No, so who knows?
Today, this wouldn't happen.
I don't know.
A kid 6 years old could be left on his own, and his parents are killed.
No, civil law much. Civil.
Yeah, I would imagine that the civil law in the state would protect the child, but I don't know that the takana doesn't apply anymore. This takana was probably made 1,000 years ago, right? Or over 1,000 years, 1,500 years ago. So they made this takana because this was a real issue.
So that
In
relevant.
Ontario,
Sorry, go ahead.
in Ontario, there's legislation called the Age of Majority and Responsibility Act that says that kids under 18, the contracts are not enforceable against minors, less than 18, unless they're for necessities of life. So for example, for food, clothing, shelter, medicine,
And that's the way
if you contract with they have to pay. But other than that, commercial contracts and stuff are not enforceable against the kids.
And that's 18, not 13.
18.
Yeah.
What a huge difference.
But we cannot have an investment account for a client for a person under 18 because they're not legal. So it's going to be in trust for the parent. And when they become 18, then it goes to their name. But anything under 18 does not have an investment account.
Yeah.
So Rabbi, relevant to the next few days about the esrog.
The esrog, the whole esrog shaila. Yeah.
Isn't this relevant to this, that they can't, somehow you can't, if you give it to them, then they not obligated to give it back? I don't know, I mean, the rabbi knows the halacha, but is there something that
What's the
touches on this?
Well, what Paul is referring to is that, let's say you want to let your child shake lulav on the first day of Sukkot. This is only relevant on the first day of Sukkot, when the Torah says ulakachtem lachem, that the arba minim have to belong to you. Okay, so what if? So normally, if someone asks you, "Can I use your lulav and esrog? I don't have my own." So you have to do a matana almanas lahachzer. You have to say, "Okay, for the next 5 minutes, this is yours, and you'll give it back to me." The problem with doing that with a minor is that according to Torah law, a minor can acquire something as long as an adult gives it to him, but a minor does not have the ability to transact it back if he so wishes. So therefore, you're stuck in the sense that if you give it to a minor on the first day, then you no longer own it, and there's no way.
Your bracha first.
You make sure you do your bracha first. That's one, but also the thing is that it won't belong to you anymore for the rest of Sukkot. It won't be owning your own. Not really. Technically, that's right. But that's the thing, is that technically the kid can say afterwards, "Hey, it's my esrog, my little bit of esrog."
I'm gonna guess what juice.
It's mine. It's mine. What?
You're doing a bracha.
You're allowed to make a bracha on someone else's lulav and esrog. It's just the first day it has to belong to you.
How does it work with your kids?
So with your kids, you say, "Okay, I'll let you borrow it, but I'm not giving it to you." In other words, you can let your child, he won't be able to fulfill the mitzvah of ulukachtem lachem. He won't be able to own it the first day,
But they're not
which
obligated.
they're not obligated. So that's not a problem. But what you're pointing out,
14 or 15.
no, that's once he reaches the age of 13, then he has the considered to have das to be able to be makna it back
And then give it back.
and then give
But
it
how
back.
does that fit with this to come?
No, so this takana was only for financial transactions, not for mitzvahs.
I see,
Like-
okay, so
like-
it's distinguished.
So biblically, his transactions are not legal transactions. Chazal stepped in and said, using the principle of Hefker based in Hefker, that the based in has the ability to transfer monies from one party to another, even against their will. They said that a minor's transactions for commercial purposes are legally binding, but that takana would not extend to that. Yeah, sure.
Does this hold only to orphans, like the parent can still if there is a parent alive, the parent can override the child's.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Does this
And the mother or just the father?
can a parent step in? And then also, does it only apply to a father and not to a mother? Because a mother doesn't really have financial control over her child in halacha. These are all valid questions. Well, let's see. Let's finish the paragraph. Hakatan eino konim b'metaltalin ela im kein mashach. So as far as the method of acquisition, normally a person can acquire things in a number of different ways, including a shtar. He doesn't necessarily have to take physical possession of the item in order to make a kinyan. But with a minor, the rabbis only allowed him to acquire chattel through meshicha, through actually taking full possession physically of the items. But if he just pays cash and he hasn't yet taken physical possession of the goods, a minor is allowed to back out of the deal. Normally, we say that anyone who backs out of such a deal acquires a curse. We learned about this. Mishpat, he who exacted vengeance from the generation of the flood and from the generation of the Migdal Bavel, he will exact vengeance from someone who does not stand by his word. So that doesn't apply to a minor. Aval ima koine hayagadol, the nasan kesef lakatan afshalo mashach es hamekach asilo lachzer mehamekach. But it doesn't work conversely, which means if the purchaser is an adult and the seller is a minor, the purchaser does not have the right to back out of the deal. Meaning it's an accommodation made for the minor, but we don't reverse the accommodation for the adult that's transacting with him. The Yeshel of Mishapar. V'chol ma shetiknu chazal she'akatan mekchol mekach u'mimkaro mekar mecher zehu davke im akatan yasom ve'ein lo av she'yafar nesenu. And then he further says, and this is an important qualification, this accommodation only applies to an orphan. It does not apply to someone who has a father that can support him. And we'll go even further. What if the minor is an orphan, but he has a custodian? He has a foster parent or someone who can take him in and take care of his affairs. That's called an apotropos, right? Which is a Greek term. As a matter of fact, Jonathan Malevsky wrote an article in the Chachmei Lev going through a whole list of Greek words that were adopted by Chazal in Talmudic vocabulary. It's an interesting little piece. So he has just the latest one, yeah. And one of the words is apotropos that he uses as an example. Uminahal es hamischar shelo, someone who can administrate over his financial affairs, then the minor does not have any legal standing. So finally, I mean, I guess the final word is this accommodation probably does not have modern applications in the world today, unless you're really dealing with a kid who's living on the street for some reason, and he just slipped through the cracks in the system, which is, I guess it's theoretically possible, but it's unlikely that would ever be allowed to happen in a modern society, right?
Type of transaction and dealing with that child is probably not best
Well, you always see these movies about the kid living on the street and stuff. Anyway, that's sort of just a synopsis of the halacha. Okay, let's go to the next one. Levatel es hamekach ekav itashlum kol hakesef. Can you nullify a sale if a person's only put partial payment down and has not made full payment? So, she'ela mishakana is a davar misuim. Person buys a piece of merchandise, im al yedei kinyan mashicha o hagba o kinyan suder. And the purchase was done through some kind of kinyan, a legal transaction, whether he lifted up the object, or he used chalipin, or he pulled it towards him. V'hakona, he buys a new TV, whatever. V'hakona lo shilim ela mixas hakesef ala mekach. But he only made partial payment. He wants to do the layaway plan, okay? V'hamocher hayadachok lekesef kishemocher es hamekach, and the seller needed to move the merchandise, so he accepted partial payment from the buyer. And then it comes, the date arrives for the buyer to pay the balance, okay, what he owes. And the buyer says, I don't have the money right now. You'll have to come back later. So, question is, can the seller nullify the purchase? The deal was, you get to take your merchandise with putting down only 10% or 20%, whatever it was. But by the end of the year, by January 2026, you have to pay the balance. January 2026 arrives, you haven't paid the balance. What are the seller's rights in that situation? What? The buyer has the merchandise. He's already taken possession.
Where it leads to?
There you go. Okay.
Next, you're gonna say the computer's in, thrown out of the house too.
So,
Because they put an air conditioner box in the TV, it's an air conditioner.
When you don't want it back.
yeah, those days, I don't think anyone does that anymore.
You don't want it back because it's used already, so you cannot resell it to somebody else, like brand new.
Well, it has residual value. It
Sure it does. So what about a car? People come in, you see on the, you come and refill a car. If you don't make your payments, they'll come and take it away.
So in secular law, there would be an election of the borrower, that the non-payment of on the repayment date would be a fundamental breach by the buyer. And then the seller would have an election, either accept the fundamental breach and then cancel the contract and get the money back. Or I accept the breach and say, okay, make a deal, you can have another 30 days or whatever. If you do the latter, you've waived the fundamental breach and now you're into a new situation.
What's a new contract?
That's the sale, give you another 30 days or something, and then, give him a break. You wouldn't be able to cancel the contract because he hasn't accepted the repudiation as canceling the deal. That's his choice.
Unless the person goes bankrupt and then they personally bankrupt,
Yeah.
have no access to anything.
Well, bankruptcy, there's no such thing as bankruptcy in Jewish law.
No, the halach, but in civil, just on a civil,
Yeah.
if you go bankrupt, even a corporation or personally, you're, say it's from shown from all your debts, everything.
Well, the bankruptcy stays the claim, and then in the bankruptcy, it gets all sorted out.
It's so, right, but if there's no money, no one gets anything.
Correct.
So, Rabbi, in the case of this, where you've got a seller who sold, let's say, the TV, and either January 2026, and the guy says, the buyer says, I don't have the money. Would it be possible for the seller to now be able to treat that as a rental and take rent on the item? He's still got it in his position, charge rental. He's still got it in his possession, right? Or would it be seen as rivers?
Well, it's only going to be ribis if he owes the same balance that he owed in the originally.
Action of the original.
Yeah, yeah, there'd have to be some kind of new arrangement that's set up where the guy says,
Monthly payments.
the monthly payments, but you can't charge interest on it.
So you can't charge any different price for it.
Correct.
So how could the seller recompense the fact that they lost out on.
This is
on
right. So this is the question. Either he can repossess the item.
But he's gonna make a loss on, because now he's gonna resell a used item. So there's, whichever way it goes, the seller is at a disadvantage at this point.
The seller will be at a disadvantage in cases where the used merchandise has lost most of its residual value.
So this is like, if you think a customer was buying something that was not really worthy, but you're gonna go with it, you'll charge them like another 50% more on the product, so when they're paying every month and they miss the last final payment, you've really gotten what you wanted to get. But isn't there a halachic for how much you can make?
Well, if you recall, one of the things we discussed, and I don't remember which sefer we were using, I think it was Rav Shraga, he said explicitly that it's really problematic, and it goes on in the Frum community all the time in Israel, where you can buy a set of Sfarim, let's say, and they'll give you two prices.
Yeah.
You can pay cash and carry 100 shekels, or you can pay out over installments and it's only 120 shekels. Okay, and that's a problem of ribbis. Yeah.
That's what I was about to say.
But about just straight out profit margin, that you're gonna, if you sell this regularly for $100 and you know the guy will ship away for it.
Halachically, I don't think you can do it, because you have to sell at what the given market rate is.
So right, so if you have two fixed prices that are clearly disclosed to the buyer, you can either pay this price, cash and carry, or another price where we extend you credit. So then that is a problem of ribbis, but it's only if the customer is a Jew.
But what if you offer it for 150 and say, you give me cash, I'll discount it to 100?
It's really semantics. I think we said that that's not enough of a semantical difference. I think we said that it's even if you say it in terms of discount, it's not going to be good. But
So how do you word it that it's kosher? And also, if you buy something for $5, can you sell it for $100 because you got a great score and the market value is $100?
you know, I remember we did this in our Smichas Chaver program when we did some Choshen Mishpat halacha. I'll bring it up real quick if I can just find it quickly.
Because the other problem is, let's say if you're in an appliance store and you start, like, if you buy one appliance, you get it at this price, and you buy three.
Right, you buy
appliances,
6 appliances,
You buy
you
five or
buy
six,
you get a better price.
Get a better price.
But that's sale. I don't know.
Right. That's not going to be a problem of ribbis, because in both the payment is being made right out.
Yeah,
So
but
here we
you're
go.
You're getting different pricing.
You're
getting a price.
It's okay. You're allowed to have different prices. People who work in food distribution and so many other industries, they have I remember I worked in a warehouse.
1 piece, 12 piece, 24,
Yeah,
26,
yeah,
28,
but
500.
and not only
There's a
that,
different price.
but you can have different prices for different buyers depending upon what the volume they sell at.
Right.
So that there's nothing halachically wrong with that, as long as you're not charging a higher price because you're extending them credit to pay
Because when
pay
you
over
buy
the
the
course of
product,
time.
I'll get a better price when I buy something, if I buy 500 of something
Yeah.
versus 12.
Primary purchasing, I understand. I mean,
Right.
I understand, but the question is, what we're talking about is, can you advertise to pricing? Right, is one of them.
That-
is one of them, because you're gaining rivers. Right?
Right. So that, yes.
Dollars, pay cash, I'll give you $100.
Yeah, so
You're out.
that is going to be problematic, but that's all buy now,
And
pay
also,
later.
question your case, the prices that you're buying for, if I'm selling to you, I'm not putting a billboard up that says I'm selling for this price. It's a deal just between you and I.
Well, what if, like in the States, you're buying gas? And it's cheaper if you pay cash or if you use credit.
But you have to pay a commission.
Is that how it works?
With that,
Yeah.
you have to pay a
Some
commission to the credit card, so that's.
Because they have a charge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
credit, they're just,
So they're just recouping, so they're not
Yeah,
making
they're
any
not-
more money,
they're not
so it's
making-
ribbon
yeah.
stuff?
It's not, I don't think it's real.
but all they're doing is taking off the 2% or 3% of whatever the credit card is costing. If you pay
Right,
cash.
but she'll charge us for your credit card.
Yeah, but the problem is they always charge a little bit more than what they're getting charged.
And then that's
And that's
ridiculous.
the problem. So they
Or they
they
should
get
go a little bit
charged,
less.
they get charged 2.5%, they charge 3% to the customer.
It's up to me, I charge 5% for that.
I mean, there's lots of things like that. I mean, if you rent a car.
Pay the credit card charge fee.
Yeah.
Make it
A lot of companies do that.
Everyone does this. You want it, they always put on the billing, we bill you for the credit charge fee.
Right.
It has to be exactly to the point.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with with giving a person the option to pay, hold on a
But
second.
if you're aware of what you're paying, is that,
So
any
is that-
is
is
that
that
any
still-
different, is that any different from, I mean, for instance, let's say you rent a car, if you rent a car, you can pay for the gas up front. All right, for a full tank at $1.25, that's very hard to come back with an income.
Yeah, I always
figure that. It's
Because
very
I
hard
always
to
put
come
in $5 less than.
Yeah, driving for the last hour on the smell of anointed rag and the hope that you get to the place.
Everybody does that.
But I
My
mean,
wife yells at me.
but I mean,
Stop.
but the rate that you pay
No, no.
is a little bit more than the rate on the pump, right?
And then how do you know when you get the car in the first place? It really was full because I paid. They're giving back what they're doing.
Yeah, but that annoys me when I pick up my car and they give it to me and it's half full, it's like, how am I meant to come back with a half full?
That's
I
why I always do it.
I always tell them, take another quarter off it, so I can come back with even between that half and a quarter.
We all think the same.
Yeah. Yeah, this is an important thing, because I deal with this, Joby brings up a good point. So if I, let's say to my client, I mean, I don't charge credit card fees, but let's say I say to my client, that if you want to pay by credit card, you're gonna pay 3% extra. But the credit card companies only charge me 2.5%.
That's right.
Jordan, we're just talking about this, he says that should go under administration, an extra administration I have. I would say, no, it's Ribis,
Yeah.
that extra five.
I don't see that as ribis. I don't see, I'm not so sure if that's, if that's,
Ron, how about freight? You say, I'm gonna, you
No,
should
that's-
prepaid, people add on, like, you don't know how much when you're shipping a gown to some Yoko or Peterborough, that the cost of freight is 25 and you put out 35, they're not gonna know the difference. Right, people make money on the freight in business all the time.
That's, I think, a little bit different.
You're not making money. Actually, there is an administration cost to deal with this whole.
Well, you can use any extra fee, you can say it's administration to run your office.
But here, you know, exactly.
Yeah, you buy a car, there's always an admin fee, $480 or
Whatever you
something
pay
like.
money, pay for it.
Oh,
It pays for itself.
okay, hold on a second. I'm almost there. You know what? We're gonna have to hold it here for today. I apologize. But Mirza Shem, so we're gonna be off for the next
Monday.
no, I don't think so.
Which one, Monday? So this is Monday night.
You wanna get together Monday?
Why not? Guys, Monday morning, hello, guys,
It's been used.
Monday morning, so we'll get together, because even though it's Sukkot Monday night. Rabbi's asking. if we should get-
I vote yes.
Okay, Wayne.
Wayne, that's it. Wayne, that's it. Oh, wait, it's flying in.
Wayne,
It's gonna be on the airplane.
Wayne, you coming in?
I'll be there.
All
If,
right.
if
Wayne,
anyone
be there.
wants to see
We gotta
me,
get together on.
you better be there.
Okay, all right. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Good Shabbos.
Shabbat shalom.